So what was the original reason that you bought this case?
Um, it definitely allowed more options for cooling with so many fan slots or places you can actually put a fan. It's nice as a cuboid. My last build was also a cuboid, which I liked the whole aspect of having a bigger case, something that you can actually put on display.
So you liked it open.
Yes, exactly. It also created a great chance for airflow.
So I know that we were on a pretty tight budget with this build. Was that one of the reasons we went with an ASRock motherboard versus an Asus or an MSI?
Yeah, it definitely was. Overall, I prefer Asus, but when it came down to it, I decided to do this build. I just didn't have enough money to justify getting the Asus I wanted.
So I know one of the reasons that you went with this case was because of the fan support, but we also had issues just getting all the fans. What did you end up doing for that?
Well, I know for most of the build, we went to Newegg just to get some of the parts, Amazon, that type of stuff. But in the end of it, for the fans, I just bought them on eBay.
So I know that you originally wanted red as your main color theme. Why did we switch it to blue?
Honestly, I took a step back, looked at it. I had a lot of blue LED accessories as compared to what I had red. The only thing I had was an MSI mouse that had a red LED. On top of that, blue gave more of a cool feeling. The red was kind of harsh, especially when it's going to be in such a tiny room at one point. So I decided to switch over.
So with the amount of fans that you have in this case, you have a pretty significant amount of airflow. Do you see the correlation of airflow to the performance on your computer being better with lower temperatures?
I definitely do, considering my last case only ran on four fans, and I had a giant 200 millimeter on top that actually went out, that killed my performance, burnt my processor. So, one, I feel safer this way. Two, it definitely gives a performance boost when I'm running at no higher than 70C at any point in time.
So when I delidded the processor, that was the first time you'd ever seen that done. Were you concerned or worried that I was going to break it?
I wasn't really concerned. I know what you're doing. You're at a higher level than I am when it comes to building these machines, and honestly, after seeing the process, I could see myself doing it at some point in the future. So even though you aren't as experienced as some other people, I knew you could do it.
So I know that when I had my 8700K on air, I was seeing some pretty high temperatures in the ballpark of 80C. Are you seeing that now as well, or are you seeing anywhere between 60 and 70C, which is what I see mine at?
Honestly, mine idles around 45 to 50. When I start gaming, it will jump between 50 to 65C. Um, it has definitely made a bigger impact on overall temperature and the just main cooling aspect of it.
Do you have any plans of overclocking in the future?
I haven't quite decided yet. Honestly, it's giving me the performance I need for right now. I haven't seen the need to push it any further.
Knowing that your motherboard supports ninth generation processors, do you plan on moving to a 9700K or a 9900K in the future?
Probably not, considering that they're quite a few $100s. I'm getting the performance I need. I'd probably rather spend my money more on a better graphics card since I'm only running a 1060.
Since this is your first time water cooling your personal computer, were you surprised to find out how cheap it was to get one? And do you have any plans on moving to a 240 or a 280 millimeter radiator setup in the future?
I definitely was surprised by the price, considering I was thinking that the liquid coolers would be significantly more than the air coolers. As far as upgrading, I definitely see that in the future once I run into a little bit more money.
I know you wanted as much blue as possible in this build. Did you go with this RAM set only because they had blue heatsinks on them?
It was the primary reason, but at the same time, I didn't disregard the specs of the set. But all in all, it was a good fit for the build.
Are you happy with the performance of the 1060?
Well, yeah, it's giving max settings across the board.
With how much wiring there was going to be, were you concerned that it was going to look bad?
I was not concerned just because we were both experienced at wiring, and with the zip ties, you can do anything. It's just a pain in the ass.
So aside from completely forgetting to plug the pump and radiator fan in, were you happy to see that everything turned on the first boot up attempt?
You know, with the delidding, I wasn't nervous, but it's always a sigh of relief.
At this point, the build is done. We've put everything back together. This is the first time we've turned it on. What were your thoughts in seeing the final product?
To be honest, I was happy with it. I was excited to get started. I will say that we ran into a little bit of an error not being connected to a network, so none of the initial drivers came down. The motherboard, graphics card, so nothing initially worked, and I didn't have anything to connect to a network until the next day.
So when it came to the electrical issue that we had, what was your first thoughts when you started seeing that happen?
Well, first I just thought I'm either out a fan, an extension cable for the fan, a hub for the fan, or either the 4-pin on the motherboard.
My final thoughts on the build are that I'm really happy with how it turned out. I like how it visually looks. I think the only complaint I would probably have is that the mounting points for the 120 millimeter fans on the top are just not that great. Alex, do you have anything?
I'm really happy with how it turned out. My gaming experience has definitely jumped to another level. I am going to be replacing the 1060 eventually down the road with something like a 1080 Ti just for a higher performance with FPS and all that.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked watching the build, hit that subscribe button. There will be more builds.